Good evening everyone. Guys, I was going to do a separate video to cover what I'm going to cover today, but things are just happening so fast and it's absolutely wild at the moment if you live in the UK. So we're going to cover what's been happening with this Taylor Swift concert. We're going to be covering UK riots and, well, protests and counter-protests and the civil unrest in the United Kingdom. We're also going to be covering what's been happening in Ukraine, and I don't know why what's been happening in Ukraine has not made, I don't know why it's not made front page news everywhere, because when you say to yourself what's actually just happened, it's crazy and that should be plastered all over. Also, we're going to talk about this this British councillor, a UK Labour councillor, who's just been arrested for, well, I'll read you the article and then I'll let you guys decide what he's been arrested for. Sorry guys, I've not long been home. The M1 was so if you don't know, the M1 is one of the main motorways in the United Kingdom. Absolutely jam-packed driving home, and you know what, I got off the motorway and I thought, you know what, I deserve a ribeye. So I went straight to the supermarket, I got myself a ribeye, some mushrooms, and I cooked that and had that for my dinner. But anyway guys, let's begin. What should we go with first? We'll go with Ukraine first, and then we'll go straight on to this Taylor Swift thing. So, for those of you who don't know, earlier on this morning I did a video and I was talking about the Ukrainians making inroads. So basically the Ukrainians now have pushed troops into Russian mainland and they're fighting there in and around a region that's got this particular gas pipe in it that supplies gas to Europe. Now, what I'm thinking about now is, why is this not plastered all over every mainstream media? Can you think about what we're saying, guys? Okay, Ukraine, which is heavily sponsored by NATO, has now pushed troops, actually boots on the ground now, inside Russia, and not even a little bit. They're pushing about 10 miles now inside Russia. Sorry, 10 kilometers. So let me just read you the most recent article, and then I'll tell you guys what I think's happening actually behind the scenes. Around 1,000 Ukrainian troops have penetrated several miles into Russia's Kursk region. So for those of you who don't know, Kursk is kind of directly east of Kiev, and it's in and around the Sumy region, which would be on the Ukrainian side. Much of the picture remains unclear as Ukraine seeks to maintain operational security, but experts say the offensive appears to have broken through at least 2 sets of Russian defensive lines and a stronghold in the Kursk region. So obviously the Ukrainians are going to want to keep this quiet. They're not going to want to give any information away of what's happening, because obviously then the Russians can capitalize on that. But look at this now from the Russian side. So if you're a Russian now living in that area, and again, there'll be lots of innocent Russians living in that area who want absolutely nothing to do with the war. And again, they've had this forced upon them. Now, guys, I'm not saying that the Ukrainians are in the wrong. This is a war. Putin started this war, and this is what happens. What did he expect? But so they're going to want to keep operational security so the Russians can't react to anything that may or may not be happening. Now, as it says here, guys, the Ukrainians have apparently pushed through 2 sets of defensive lines. Now, I don't believe that the defensive lines on the Russian border were ever that strong, in the context that I don't think Putin ever thought that the Ukrainians would have enough strength, mobility, or, what's the word I'm looking for? Maneuverability. And push in. So that's another interesting aspect of this whole thing. Really interesting, guys, as we're moving forward, because I think this is all, I don't want to say it's got anything to do with it, but it was only a couple of days ago when the F-16s were issued to Ukraine. Now, again, I'm not convinced first of all, I'm not convinced that these F-16s are being flown by Ukrainian pilots. I don't think these F-16s will actually be flown from inside Ukraine, and I've done lots of videos explaining why. But look at the timings of this. Ukraine gets F-16s, Ukraine invades, pushes into Russia. I don't know what this means, but what you can pretty much guarantee now is that any peace talks, any peace negotiations, they're going to be off the table. Because no way in a million years is Vladimir Putin going to come to the negotiating table when Ukrainian troops are in his territory. And you know what, guys? You know, it's Vladimir Putin started this invasion, and this is what happens in wars. So anyway, guys, I'm going to leave it there, but I'm going to keep an eye on that because it's really interesting. I don't understand the significance of it yet, but I just think it's really telling that the mainstream media in the UK have not even mentioned it. Right, we'll go with Taylor Swift next. So for those of you who don't know, hang on. So Taylor Swift had So as I understand it, Taylor Swift had a concert planned in Vienna, and she's had to cut that short now. Well, she's had to cancel it actually because of a terror alert or a terror threat. As I understand it, 2 people have been arrested in Vienna, and let me read you what the article's saying. 2 held in Vienna over Taylor Swift concert threat. Police in Austria have intensified security measures around the 3 Taylor Swift concerts taking place on Thursday, Friday and Saturday. These are the ones that I think have now been cancelled. The move follows arrests on Wednesday of 2 people suspected of planning Islamic attacks on large events in the area around Vienna, including concerts by the US superstar. So I think what they've done is they've identified and they've looked at, historic events like the Ariana Grande concert in Manchester, when there's lots of children enjoying themselves with their parents, going to see their favourite singer, and, as it says there, Islamic attacks, that's what it says, it's not my words, go in there and they use devices and they, we all know what they do. The General Director of Public Safety, Franz Ruff, said a 19-year-old Austrian citizen was arrested on Wednesday morning in Turnitz, in the province of Lower Austria. He said a second arrest took place in Vienna in the afternoon, but gave no further details about the suspect. So what do we know about the suspects? Nothing, really, which tells us quite a lot. According to the current status of the investigation, the 2 suspects became radicalised via the internet. There we go again, guys, okay? We keep seeing these themes popping up. Radicalised by the internet, paid sabotage, all this stuff, guys, alright? And these things are really happening. Now, I'm just adding 2 and 2 together like somebody did in the comments in one of my previous posts. The incident in the United Kingdom that's started all this, all these protests, this was to do with Taylor Swift as well. Young girls going in to do Taylor Swift dances. I don't know if there's an Islamic war against Taylor Swift, but you can't not see these connections and you can't not add these things up. And again, why do all these attacks always aim at children? It's absolutely disgusting. Where are we, guys? And finally, where is it? Right, yeah, finally, guys. So, yesterday, and if you've not done so, guys, please share my stuff, like and subscribe, because it really helps me out when you do that. But yesterday, I did a video in the morning. Excuse me. Yesterday, I did a video in the morning, and I said, okay, somebody had sent me this list of these new protesting locations, and I looked at the list and I was like, wow, that game has changed, because it had highlighted legal companies, it had highlighted NGOs, it had highlighted basically the infrastructure that allows migrants to stay in this country using our own legal system, which is of course funded by us. Now, I said the game had changed because I thought that was a huge step up. But what's actually happened is, I think, far more sophisticated. The whole thing was a ruse. It was a ruse. It was a, what was it? It was a scam. It was fake news. It was a hoax. And what that did, it got lots of people out on the streets. Lots of other protesters or anti-protesters, guys, I don't even know what to call this anymore. You know, but it got a lot of them to come out, and most importantly with that, it got them to spend their money. It also got those organisations to understand that, hey, you know what, we've identified you guys as organisations that are doing X, Y, or Z. So it was a really interesting thing. And now, again, you know, you've got to laugh at Keir Starmer coming out on the news this afternoon saying, yes, we've met our hard stance on the far right has managed to stop these protests. There wasn't any protest. Nobody turned up. That was the thing. So you had all these, you know, counter-protests that have spent their own money, probably taken time off work, spent money in pubs, restaurants, hotels, all the rest of it out of their own pockets. And they just stood there on their own waving their banners. Who were they waving them to? Because there was no one there. There was no one on the opposite side of these things. It just didn't happen. So it's kind of not really a false flag, but it was just a way for whoever's organising these protests. And guys, these protests have been organised with military precision. So whatever it was, guys, you know, it was a ruse to get people to waste their own money. And then you have the chief of the Met Police come out saying, thanks to good policing and strong policies, we've managed to thwart the far right, you know, protests and have no violence on the streets. That wasn't the case at all. And of course, you know, nobody wants violence on the streets. You know, people were genuinely scared in where I live when these protests were happening. People who live in those housing estates, they were worried for their own safety, for their property, for their cars, all that sort of stuff. Nobody needs that. But then for the police commissioner of the Met Police to come out and actually say that they've thwarted so many of these things, it's absolutely absurd because nobody even turned up in the first place. But we have a Labour councillor, and I'll put the link in the description, guys, because I'm not going to repeat what he said. But as according to this article I'm reading now, and I'll put the link in the description, Ricky Jones has been arrested. So a Labour councillor has been arrested by the Met Police and suspended from the party for calling on something really bad to happen to a set of people. You can read it in the article. I'm not sure what words I can use on here. Ricky Jones, a borough councillor in Dartford, Kent, is thought to have made the call at a demonstration in East London on Wednesday evening. So for those of you who know what I'm talking about, I can't believe this guy, first of all, I can't believe he feels like that and he thinks that's okay just to call for this to happen. Second of all, these are people who are in positions of power. So that person, what's his name? Ricky Jones, will he have a biased opinion when he's dealing with people in his community? From his actions now, I think he'll have a really biased, because he's not a councillor anymore. From what I'm seeing, his actions and what he's saying that he wants to do to people, I think he will have a really biased opinion on people. So you just see it all the time, guys, this two-tier system, this two-tier policing. But the main things, again, guys, the incursion into Russia by Ukraine, I can't believe why it's not getting as much media attention as it should. And the Taylor Swift concert. Again, for me, this Taylor Swift concert, an attack on a Taylor Swift concert, it's an attack on young girls. It is, because it's only, it's young girls and maybe their mums and their sisters. Dads, probably a very limited amount of dads go to these places, I'm not going to lie. So that's it, guys. Are our children safe anymore because of what's happening? We can see these things happening, so we're seeing it in real time. Guys, I'm going to try and do another video later. I wanted to get this one out and put two together. But anyway, guys, I'm going back to grid.